Hi, it's Dr. Maggie Perry with Tell Me What You're Proud Of. This month we're talking about avoidances, which specifically speaks to how anxiety is created, maintained, and intensified by avoidance. So what we're trying to do when we're overcoming anxiety is find our avoidances and then do the opposite. So one way to think about avoidance is not just as behavioral avoidance, but also experiential avoidance. So the concept of experiential avoidance just means that experiential avoidance is any attempt to avoid any type of internal or external experience. So that can be a thought, it can be a feeling, it can be a sensation, a memory, an urge. It's anything we do to block, suppress, neutralize, or avoid anything that's happening internally. And so we'll talk throughout this session and in the group sessions to come about how cognitive avoidance, somatic avoidance, behavioral avoidance, emotional avoidance are all things that people do that actually make their anxiety and depression worse. So thanks, Jared, for being here to talk about it. As I just bring up the topic of experiential avoidance, what comes to mind for you first?
Well, especially with experiential avoidance, the first thing that does come to mind is was during my time when I was living in San Francisco, actually, when I just didn't feel like I was prepared to, do anything related to the workforce, related to being like independent. And I just remember that every time, and this is when I felt like I wasn't at my very low point during my life. So one of the thoughts that I actually did have that I very much do remember was, after dropping out of law school, which was in itself a pretty demoralizing experience because, I just felt like I put so much work and effort into, trying to get the results that I wanted, and it ended up being the complete opposite. And it was a little bit traumatizing in a sense, just because I never really failed like that in an academic setting. Um, and that just really put me into a spiral, just like wondering what my next 5 years was going to be looking like, or, just any type of long term plan. So every single time that I had a thought of that had something to do, something that related to my future, um, I just couldn't really handle it. And I very much did avoid that by, trying to go out, hang out with friends, trying to just get out of that thought process that I had. I feel like that definitely led to, for example, substance abuse, just constantly drinking, constantly, smoking weed. And I know for a fact that even from a long-term perspective, or just even in that moment, short term, I might be able to relieve myself. But I know that in the long term, if I were able to look that long term and continue doing that pattern, I'm just actually creating more anxiety and more avoidance to myself. And I just remember that time just being just super depressed, just super anxious, and just super not just not myself.
So now when
So
you look
yeah,
back on it, you can tell that because you were avoiding thinking about your future through substance use and through distracting yourself socially, it was actually making you more anxious and more depressed. I think those are really great examples because while substance use and abuse really does have the reputation of being an avoidant behavior, and it commonly is an avoidance behavior, something like socializing can be confusing because sometimes it's an avoidance and sometimes it's a preference and a value-based action. And so just one thing that I want to comment on is everything can be an avoidance and everything can be an exposure, so to speak. It just depends on the function of it. So if you're going out, if you're there's nothing that you're avoiding, you're allowing whatever thoughts, feelings, sensations, memories, urges that you have, and you just enjoy spending time with your friends, then that can be a values-based behavior. if you feel like you have to go spend time with your friends in order to not think about certain things or feel a certain way, then that's when that value-based behavior has become an avoidance behavior. So great job recognizing that that's what was happening. Do you want to say more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely the latter. That I was going out to avoid what I was initially thinking about. So just going out to hang out just because I wanted to escape from those responsibilities that I had.